Hi and welcome to Live and Defend. My name is Ayo. Today we're going to be looking at proofs for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But before we go any further, just three key disclaimers. Number one, we're not experts. We're students with a desire to go deeper into the Word of God, to know the Word for ourselves, and to be able to prove and to basically defend the faith. So which means that we're fallible. So number two, don't just take anything we say as gospel facts. Please feel free to go into the Word for yourself, to search these things out for yourself and prove them to be true for yourself. Hence, if you have any question, you want to challenge anything, or whatever the case may be, please feel free to reach out to us. So together we can discuss it and we can grow together in the faith. And finally, please don't just be a hearer of the word. Take your faith, share your faith, describe and explain and reason your faith with unbelievers, and most importantly, share Jesus with the world. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, looking at this particular topic here, we're going to look at 5 key areas. Number one, what is the importance of me knowing and being able to prove the resurrection? Secondly, criteria for credibility of evidence. Thirdly, we're going to look at 12 minimal facts for the resurrection of Jesus. Fifth, and I'm going to give 5 key personal arguments for the resurrection. And finally, I'm going to conclude briefly. Now, looking and going straight into the first topic, what is the importance of the resurrection? Why is it important for me today to be able to prove the resurrection of Jesus Christ? If we look at 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 14, and Romans chapter 10, verse 9, the first scriptures basically says that if Christ has not been raised, all our preaching has been for nothing, and our faith is useless. Basically, if Jesus Christ hasn't been raised and didn't rise from the dead, that means Christianity is fake news. Every single person who has passed away, who has died as a result of their faith in this Jesus Christ, from the past, now, and even in the future, their deaths would have been in vain. Christianity would be fake, and literally the life that we live, the life of God that we claim to live, would also be in vain. So Christianity in and of itself is predicated upon the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And Romans chapter 10 verse 11 also goes another step further to say that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. What does this mean? This also means that that our salvation is also predicated upon the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So listen, it's so important that we can prove and we can be sure that the resurrection of Jesus was in fact authentic. All right, otherwise we might as well just live like we want because tomorrow we die, but however, we thank God for the resurrection of Jesus Christ, because our salvation as well as the Christian faith are predicated upon the resurrection of Jesus Christ, upon the resurrection of Jesus Christ being authentic. Moving forward, now, the second question that we're going to look at today, we're going to talk about credibility of evidence. What does this actually mean? Bear with me, please. Credibility of evidence. Right. Now, the question therefore is, if you think about it this way, scholars, some of them are believing scholars, some of them are skeptic scholars, especially those who are focused and who have been looking into the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Before they can believe any evidence, think about it this way. If I'm a witness and I want to share something that I believe has changed my life with you, for example, right? Scholars, what they claim is that in order for them to believe the validity, the credibility, and the authenticity of that thing I'm sharing with you, it has to be vetted by 5 criteria. 5 criteria will show them that what I'm saying has the possibility of being true. What are these criteria? The first one is attestation. Attestation. What does this mean? Attestation basically says that who else apart from me witness that thing that can approve or corroborate or attest to what I'm saying. If there's somebody else out there who can also attest to what I'm saying, then that's more likely to be true. It's basically more likely to be true. So that's the first one. Second argument is affirmation. Affirmation. What does this mean? Affirmation basically says that are there other neutral or even skeptical resources or neutral or skeptical sources out there who can affirm what I'm saying? Now, these are people that probably don't know me or probably don't even like me, but maybe they've done their own research or they may also have witnessed that very thing that I'm talking about. Now, think about it this way. They have nothing to gain by affirming what I'm talking about. That's what makes it authentic. If a neutral or a skeptic source can also affirm what I'm saying, then the argument is that what I'm saying is more likely to be true. And the third one anyway, is called embarrassment. Embarrassment, right? Now, the principle of embarrassment basically says this, that if someone like me is sharing a testimony, right? If somebody is sharing what they believe is their own testimony of something, and that person is willing to share an information that could potentially weaken their argument or discredit their argument or even make them look foolish, then more than likely what they're sharing is authentic. Why? Because think about it. What do they have to gain by giving such information? In fact, they have everything to lose. So for them to share such an embarrassing information basically, goes to show that what they're talking about is authentic. Let me give you a very, very interesting example for this, okay? Just in case I forget to talk about it moving forward. You see, one of the evidence we're going to give today is the empty tomb. Right? Now, one of the first century historian called Josephus, one of the things that he mentioned was that back in the ancient Jewish time, the women had no credence, they had no credibility at all. In fact, it was impossible to get a woman to witness in the Jewish court of law. However, the people who wrote and reported about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, or rather, the first people who witnessed it and reported it were women. Right? And for them to write and to be bold enough to say that it was a woman or women who identified the empty tomb first and then spoke about it also falls under the principle of embarrassment. So embarrassment, once again, all right, goes to show that what one is talking about is potentially authentic. Number 4 is eyewitness. Eyewitness. What eyewitness basically says is that, listen, you who is giving that testimony, right? Were you the first-hand witness of that testimony? Did you see it with your own 2 eyes? Or do you know people, or do you know somebody who witnessed it with their own 2 eyes and then they shared it with you before you now shared it with somebody else? The argument is that if you are the main person who witnessed it, or you are in close proximity with somebody who witnessed that thing and then told you, then it's more likely that what you're saying is also true. And finally, number 5, early testimony. Early testimony. What this basically argues is that between the time that the event happened and the time that you shared it, what was the time frame? The argument is that the earlier or the sooner that you share that information, the more credible it will be, because the longer you leave it, obviously, the more the information may not be credible, right? So these are the 5 key criteria of credibility that scholars around the world, okay, would look into before they can believe or they can basically take anything that one says as credible. So now here's the thing. Looking at the evidence and the arguments that we're going to be giving today, please take some time and weigh them according to this 5 criteria. See, if they meet those criteria, then more than likely what we're talking about is true. Moving forward. Now, based on these 5 criteria as well, we're going to talk about the 12 minimal facts. 12 minimal facts. What is this about? There's a man called Dr. Gary Habermas. Gary Habermas is a modern-day, still alive, contemporary philosopher, theologian, historian, and apologist. Now, he's written over 45 books, and half of his books have been based on the resurrection of Jesus. So this man knows his stuff, and this man is a legend in the world today. He's done the research, looked at the data, the archaeological facts, he's looked at various sources, spoken to various people, and he knows what he's talking about. In his PhD thesis, what he basically coined was the 12 minimal facts. And the argument with this minimal fact is that there are 12 important facts about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which took place after Jesus Christ ascended. 12 facts that scholars, once again, both skeptics and also believing scholars who have looked into these 12 facts, they've done the research regarding these 12 facts, they've also weighed these facts according to the 5 criteria that we spoke initially. They've looked at the data, the archaeological information and findings, right? They've looked at resources, they've spoken to people, and what these scholars have agreed, and I'm talking about globally, over 90% of scholars around the world have looked at these 12 facts and they've agreed that these facts are authentic, to the point where, like I said, over 90% of these scholars refuse to disprove these facts and they see these facts as authentic. What are these facts, you ask? Don't worry, I will tell you right now. The first of the facts is that, number one, that Jesus Christ died by crucifixion. Jesus Christ died by crucifixion. Listen, I'm not going to speak about every single one of these facts, but I want to mention maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of them, right? But the first one, I'm going to briefly talk about the first one very, very quickly. Like I said, Jesus Christ died by crucifixion. Let me just make a quick detour and speak about crucifixion. Listen, crucifixion, the word crucifixion, it comes from a Latin word called crucifixio or crucifixus, right? Now, and that means fixed to a cross. What they did about crucifixion now is that it was reserved for the slaves, the criminals, those who have been found guilty of treason, soldiers who have basically rebelled in the community, and general, low-class citizens. So for you to be found guilty and to be basically punished for crucifixion, that means, man, you've really, really messed up. Now, crucifixion started actually back in the Persian era, from 300 to 400 BC. And it went from Persia to the Assyrians, then it went from there to the Scythians, then to the Carthaginians, then to Germans, to Celts, and then it went to Britain. But the crucifixion also actually became a lot more prevalent under the reign of Alexander the Great, from 325 BC to 323 BC. But then the thing about crucifixion as well, guys, is that crucifixion had a 100% success rate in killing its victim. The moment they pronounced the judgment of crucifixion upon you, that's literally death sentence, right? So, also, Josephus actually also mentioned that after the fall of Jerusalem, in AD 70, the Romans hated the church, the Jews, so much that they inflicted mighty and multitude of crucifixion upon the church. All right, this is what Josephus said. Remember, Josephus was a 1st century historian. He was an independent source, and that's basically what he said. And finally, there are 4 types of crucifixion. Listen carefully, there are 4 types of crucifixion. The first one is called cross simplex, right? This is basically a straight log that they hung people on. A straight log that they hung people on. The second one is called cross commissa, right? Cross commissa is the T-shaped cross. T-shaped cross. The third one is called cross decussata. That one is the X-shaped cross, and it's often been argued that this cross was what Peter was hung on. And number 4 is the cross immissa. Cross immissa, as we know more popularly, is the lower T-shaped cross. So people who were found guilty and then pronounced judgment of crucifixion upon, they basically died as a result of one of these 4. And I'm pretty sure that majority of us will be aware that Jesus Christ himself was hung on the cross immissa. All right, so like I said, see, crucifixion basically therefore was a death sentence, right? Tacitus, one of the historians of the day as well, he basically said that crucifixion was an extreme penalty. Cicero said crucifixion was a horrendous torture. That's how you know that, listen, crucifixion was not a joke. If you were given that punishment, it was basically death sentence. And it has also been proven that Jesus Christ was killed by crucifixion. So that's the first one. The second point is that Jesus Christ was buried. Okay, the third point was that his death caused the disciples to despair and to lose hope. Fourth point, Jesus' tomb was discovered, or was claimed to be discovered, to be empty a few days later. Fifth, the disciples believed that they experienced appearances of the risen Jesus. Sixth, after this, the disciples were transformed from doubters into bold and passionate believers. Number 7, the message of the resurrection was and became the center message of the preaching in the early church. Number 8, the message was preached all across Jerusalem. Number 9, as a result of this preaching, the church grew and the church was born basically, and it grew mightily. Number 10, Resurrection Sunday, it's a mighty one here. Resurrection Sunday replaced the Sabbath day Saturday as the primary day of worship. Number 11, James, a staunch skeptic, and also he was the brother of Jesus Christ. He didn't even believe in Jesus Christ at all. But as a result of seeing Jesus Christ, or the person that he claimed to be Jesus Christ, he was converted and then became a radical. Number 12, Paul, an enemy of Christianity, was converted by an experience which he also believed to have been the appearance of the risen Jesus Christ. So these are 12 minimal facts that historians and apologists and scholars around the world, over 90% of them, have agreed to be true. Even the skeptics all agree to this to be true. And these are also 12 facts that proves, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now that we've spoken about the 12 minimal facts, I now want to basically give you 5 key arguments that I believe are personal to me, that I would also want to use to explain the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The first one is the rise of the early church. The rise of the early church. You see, as a result of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the church was born and it grew. The message of the resurrection literally took the world by storm and turned the world upside down. The disciples, as well as the followers of Jesus Christ, they claimed that the resurrection was the motivation for their teaching, for their preaching, for their living, and ultimately for their dying. So the resurrection really and truly was the center message that literally started the church at the time as well. Not just that, as I mentioned earlier, Sunday took over Saturday, the Sabbath day Saturday, as the primary day of worship. Why did the church decide to change a historical tradition of the Jewish people, which was the Sabbath day, which was what they usually used to do? They usually spent Sabbath day to observe, to observe God, basically, right? But then they decided to change this day and change it into Sunday. Why? The argument was that they wanted to commemorate the rise of their Lord and the Savior, Jesus Christ. And that's the reason why they decided to start to worship on Sunday instead of the traditional day of Saturday. This is an example, and for me, and also a proof that they indeed did see the resurrected Jesus Christ. The second point here is the empty tomb. Empty tomb. Now, this is a very interesting one here. As I mentioned initially, guys, that it was women who first reported the empty tomb under the principle of embarrassment. Secondly, listen, as a result of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, there were some haters, some enemies of the church, of the followers of Jesus Christ, who wanted to disprove, and to discredit or to dismiss the story of the resurrection of Jesus. So what did they do? They decided to concoct some conspiracy theories. There were so many theories that they made up, so many. But I'm going to talk about 3 key ones, right? Because I think it's a really, really important. The first of the conspiracy theory that they mentioned was the stolen body theory. The stolen body theory. What this basically says was that, listen, when Jesus Christ, was buried in the tomb, there was a time, whilst probably the soldiers were sleeping or whatnot, and then the followers of Jesus came and they stole the body, and then they left. Now, but this is farcical. If you think about the character of Jesus Christ, if you think about the message that Jesus Christ preached and taught his followers, now for the followers to now go behind, people's back and then steal the body of Jesus, this would have been contradictory to the character and to the message of Jesus Christ. And this was also contradictory to the character of the followers at that time. Secondly, think about it this way as well. If the followers had deliberately gone and stole the body of Jesus and then lied about it, they would have been guilty, right, of what we call a psychological and ethical conundrum / impossibility. Many people have died as a result of the witness of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Many were slaughtered, many were burnt alive, many were thrown into hot oil, many were thrown off a cliff, many were beheaded, many were just killed in crazy ways. Think about it. If they had deliberately lied that the Lord Jesus had risen from the dead, and then decide to then allow even themselves, because even they died crazy deaths themselves, they would have been guilty of the deaths of millions of people, including their own death. So that's why this stolen body theory has been debunked by scholars around the world, and it basically has no ground to stand on today. So that's the first one. The second one is the swoon theory. The swoon theory. The thing about the swoon theory, what he basically argues is that Jesus Christ didn't actually die on the cross. Apparently he fainted. So when they took him down, they bound him in grave clothes and they put him in the tomb. Few days later, he magically recovered. And as he recovered, he rolled out the stone, for some way and somehow miraculously, hid from the soldiers that were guarding the tomb, and they made his way to his followers, appeared to them, and they said, "Hey guys, I rose again from the dead, look at me." But this argument has also been debunked over the years, because this argument actually kind of surfaced around the 18th century, all right? But think about it this way. As I said initially, crucifixion had 100% success rate in killing its victim. If you didn't die on the cross, right, what usually happened was they would break your legs, and eventually you would suffocate, and then basically you would die. So by the time they brought you down from the cross, you had already died. Okay, so number one, see, the fact that Jesus Christ didn't die is a lie. Okay, secondly as well, think about it this way. Given that he didn't die on the cross, right, the grave clothes that they wrapped around him was 75 pounds spice-laden grave clothes. It would have suffocated him eventually, and he would have died regardless, because think about it, he was mutilated, he was killed and battered. You couldn't even recognize this person anymore. He had no energy. So how would he, or how could he have survived, that 3 days wrapped in grave clothes? Given, okay, so he didn't die that way. Okay, look at it this way as well. Let's say he didn't even die that way, right? And he rose on maybe the second or the third day. How could Jesus did this? How could Jesus have rolled by himself a 2,000 boulder gravestone? How could he have rolled it away by himself, made his way past 10 to 20 soldiers who were guarding the tomb? And think about it this way. These soldiers, they knew that if Jesus Christ was to escape the tomb under their watch, they would have been punished and in fact killed. A majority of them would have been crucified themselves. So how would one person who had been battered and bruised and practically dead, how could he have rolled over the stone, made his way past 10 to 20 soldiers, and then left without them not knowing? That also goes to show that this theory is foolish and has also been debunked. The third argument is the hallucination theory, right? And I'm going to link this theory to my next point, which is the post-mortem appearance of Jesus Christ. Right? Cool. So the hallucination theory basically argues that majority, if not practically every single person who claimed to have seen Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, had been hallucinating. Now, just the thought of that alone just makes you want to laugh, to be honest, because it's interesting. When you think about hallucination, hallucination was a private thing that happened. And it's a personal thing as well. It's more than likely that one person by themselves in a place can hallucinate about something, but the probability of even having 3 people hallucinates about the same thing at the same time in the same place is farcical, right? Completely farcical. But then it's not just that. You see, the appearance of Jesus Christ was unique. Why? Because it didn't just happen in one place. It happened in different places, number one. It happened to different people, number two. It happened to groups of people as well. And to think that they will be hallucinating, farcical, all right? Now, and I'm just going to give a quick quote here. N.T. Wright, a British scholar, he basically argued that is why, as a historian, I cannot explain the rise of the early Christianity unless Jesus rose again, leaving an empty tomb behind. Now, hence, the post-mortem experience that the disciples or the followers of Jesus Christ claim to have. Think about it this way. First, there were 10 people, 10 times in the Bible. No, I tell a lie. There were about 12 times in the Bible that we see certain people claim to have seen the resurrected Jesus. But I'm going to give you 10 examples. Number one, 2 women outside Jerusalem. Matthew chapter 28, verse 9 to 10. Mary Magdalene, John chapter 20, verse 15 to 18. 2 travelers on the road to Emmaus also claim to have seen the resurrected Jesus. Luke chapter 24, verse 13 to 32. Peter in Jerusalem claimed to see Jesus Christ. Luke chapter 24, verse 34. Number 5, 11 disciples in the upper room claimed to see Jesus Christ. John chapter 20, verse 26 to 31. Number 6, 7 disciples fishing. John chapter 21, verse 1 to 23. Number 7, 11 disciples on the mountain of Galilee claimed to see Jesus Christ. Matthew chapter 28, verse 16 to 20. Number 8, more than 5, listen, Paul the apostle, he argued that Jesus Christ appeared to more than 500 people in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 5. But dig this also, he didn't just say that Jesus Christ appeared to these people, but that some of these people were also still alive at that time, and they were able to attest, they were also able to affirm, and they were also able to bear witness to that particular appearance at that time. Number 9, James also claimed to have seen the resurrected Jesus. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 7. Listen, James once again was a skeptic. This was the brother of Jesus Christ. He didn't even know Jesus. He didn't even care about Jesus as well, to be honest with you, until he realized and he claimed to have seen the resurrected Jesus. And then he became converted, and then he became a radical. And finally, Paul the apostle in Acts chapter 9 verse 5 also claimed to have seen the resurrected Jesus. Listen guys, these are 10 examples of people who claim to have experienced that post-mortem appearance of the resurrected Jesus. And you're telling me that they were all hallucinating? Farcical, not true whatsoever. And the only thing that can basically explain this was that they did in fact see the resurrected Jesus. So that's the third argument right there. Okay, now then we're going to move on to the fourth argument that I want to make. The transformation of the early church. Transformation of the early church. Think about it once again this way, all right? The believers and the followers of Jesus Christ, they had originally thought that their Messiah was going to come, he was going to overthrow Caesar, destroy the Roman government, set up his own government, and then basically save them, right? But then he was killed, and then he died. And what this did to them was that it basically left them dejected. They were depressed. They were broken. They were downcasted. They were just completely deflated. Majority of them didn't know what to do with their life anymore. So think about it this way. Considering the people, the followers of Jesus Christ, who were initially downcasted and broken and hurt and battered and bruised, something must have happened to have changed them and turned them completely 360 from being broken one time to now being a radical. They became transformed. They became passionate, and to the point where they took the message of the resurrection around the world. They did damage to the point that they were even ready to die for what they believed. They were completely ready to give everything for what they believed. Now, Luke Johnson, a New Testament scholar at Emory University, he says some sort of powerful transformative experience is required to generate the sort of movement that early Christianity was. So also scholars have also argued that something tangible, something unique must have happened to have changed the disposition of these believers, of these followers of Jesus Christ, from being cowardly and sad and down and broken and downcasted to being transformed into radicals who basically changed and turned the world upside down and were even ready to die. Listen, they even counted it as a privilege for them to die for what they believed. And only one thing, once again, could have explained that radical change, and that could have also been because they experienced the risen Jesus Christ. They had a personal experience with the resurrected Jesus. And finally, number 5, the transformation of Christians today. Now, this is amazing because, there's one thing, us arguing about, this happened to that people and to those people. It's another thing when you're coming from a point of personal experience. There are people like me. There are many millions and millions and millions of Christians around the world today who can categorically attest, categorically affirm, categorically, testify that they have experienced Jesus Christ for themselves. And as a result of that experience, their lives have changed, right? So even the transformation of Christian today also proves greatly, actually, that Jesus Christ did in fact resurrect. There are many terrorists who have encountered the risen Jesus and their lives have been transformed forever. There are many people who have been depressed, who have been suicidal, many people who had addictions, many people who had been sick, many people who had basically almost died, and they experienced the resurrected Jesus, and as a result their lives have changed. Even the atheists, the skeptical of the skeptics, the skeptics of the skeptics, they have also experienced Jesus, and the only thing that they can say is that as a result of that experience, their lives have changed for good. Now, and I believe, and I want to use this, guys, as a way to also assure you, if you're watching this video and you don't actually know this Jesus Christ, I want to assure you that you can also experience this Jesus for yourself. Yes, you can experience him for yourself. And if you're interested in finding out more information on how you can do that, please reach out to us. But anyway, coming back to my point and concluding very, very briefly, as we have already spoken about in this talk today, right? Initially, we spoke about the importance of us being able to prove that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. Secondly, we spoke about the credibility of evidence. What makes an evidence credible? That's the second thing. The third thing, we spoke about the 12 minimal facts. Fourthly, we spoke about, I gave you 5 key arguments for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, guys, listen, the aim of this, once again, please, is not to give you information and expect you to believe everything that we've said. The aim is to stoke something in your heart so that you as well can go back into the Word and you can search this out for yourself and hopefully be bold and be strong in what you know. We're going to give you 3 sources that we use here, okay? The first one is Dr. Gary Habermas. He has a book called The Case for the Resurrection of Jesus Christ. Better yet, just type in GaryHabermas.com. GaryHabermas.com. It has a wealth of resources in this website that you can use to educate yourself. Secondly, another amazing theologian and philosopher is Dr. William Lane Craig. He has a book called On Guard, and also has other materials. Better yet, go to reasonablefaith.org and you will find some amazing wealth of materials for you to help you in your studying. And finally, the late Paul E. Little, he has a book, two books actually, called Know What You Believe and Know Why You Believe. Know what you believe and know why you believe as well. We believe that these books will bless you, these resources will bless you as well, and most importantly, take this information for yourself. Be bold and be strong in what you believe, and basically go out there and share Jesus with the world. God bless you for listening to us. Thank you very much. Please share this video, subscribe, and talk about it. Share your faith and be a blessing to the world. God bless you.